Welcome to Aging Insight with your host, John Ross and Lisa Schollmeyer. This program is made possible by
Welcome everyone to Aging Insight. I'm Lisa Schollmeyer. I'm here with John Ross. John and I are elder law attorneys, and we bring you Aging Insight so we can bring you information that helps you make good choices and navigate through the complexity of getting older and dealing with retirement, health issues, financial issues, and legal issues.
That's right. We've been doing this long enough. We know it's pretty easy for you to make some mistakes out there. And we know that if you have the right information, you probably, you at least have a better chance of not making those mistakes. So that's why we show up every week, try to give you all this good information.
That's right. So today on Aging Insight, we're going to talk about probably one of the most common questions that we get in our office, and as well as one of the most common mistakes that we see people make before they ever talk to us.
Yeah, one of the things that people just, they think, oh, well, I've gotten to a certain age or a certain stage in life, and this is just one of those things that you do.
That's right. So today we're going to talk about, should you add your adult child to your bank account? We have a lot of seniors who think that, as they get a little older, they're worried about an emergency situation where maybe they have a medical crisis, and they think, well, hey, I'll just add a child to my account. And we think that's a mistake. So today we're going to go over at least 5 reasons. We might come up with another one or two, but 5 reasons that you should not add your adult child to an account.
That's right. So let's get started. Our first issue here is the risk of unintentional disinheritance. Now, if you've got more than one child or you're planning on providing for more than one child, let's say you go and you have a bank account, you add one of your kids as a joint owner on the bank account. What you probably don't realize is that buried in the contract there with the bank, it's going to say that whatever is in that account at the time of your death belongs to the surviving joint owner. So even though that's your account, and even though you have a will that says I leave everything to my 3 kids, when you die, that account is going to belong to that one child that you added to the bank account. And when I say unintentional disinheritance, well, yeah, it can be. If you have a bunch of money in that account or accounts, and you're intending for that to go to all 3 kids, you die, it all goes to the one child. Well, maybe they might decide to share that with their brothers and sisters, but they certainly don't have to. It's theirs. And even if you have a will that says otherwise, then it doesn't matter. Your will has no control over a joint tenant with right of survivorship bank account. And so, Lisa, I've actually had this in my practice several times, both where the kids, in fact, even in my own family, my mother did all the banking. So she ended up with all of my grandfather's accounts. Now, after she got done handling everything after his death, she split everything with all of her brothers and sisters. But, she had to file gift tax returns. That was her money.
Right. Yeah. And so contractually with the bank, when you add a child to your account and you believe you're doing it for your own convenience, and maybe that child did not put a single dime in that account, but under the law, that account now belongs equally to both you and the child. And in my experience, the bank always checks the box for joint owner with right of survivorship. Even if you tell the banker that you have 3 kids and you want your account to go to all 3 kids, but you want to add your daughter who lives here locally to the account, John, I always see them check the box, joint owner with right of survivorship.
Every single time.
Which means the banker or the customer service representative at the bank just made a major estate planning decision for you that you probably didn't intend. So when you die, everything in that account goes to that one child that is on the account with you. And, you know, John, you were talking about that legally, it is that child's money.
It is.
Now, how often have we had a client who said, well, my daughter knows that I want her to share that with her brothers.
Oh yeah, they say that all the time. I know they'll do the right thing.
And do they always do the right thing?
Sometimes.
Right. So, you know, what I have found, John, frankly, is if there's a child locally that's been here helping mom out while the other kids live, particularly if the other kids live away, maybe at the beginning of this aging process, everybody was on that same page. Oh, it's all going to be split.
Right, and if mom had dropped dead right that moment,
right,
that child would have split everything out.
Right, but 3 years, 5 years, 8 years later, after that child who lived locally had been up at nights and at the hospital and running errands and doing all those things that they were doing because they were here locally, sometimes when mom dies, that child decides that, you know what, their siblings were not here to help and they earned every dime that's left in that account.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So number one reason not to add a child to your account is you may be unintentionally disinheriting your other children when you do that, as far as that money goes.
That's right. So, you know, there's another issue here. The second reason not to put those kids on the account, and that's the risk of intentional loss. You know, here's what it looks like. You've got your kid added to the bank account. They're there to help you out. Your idea is if you need some help, they're already on the account, they can pay some bills. They can write checks for you, they can access that money, they can do what needs to be done. And here's the way I've seen it happen so many times. It starts out something like this. You know, the kid is doing a lot of running around for you. They're doing some grocery shopping for you. And when they go to the grocery store, they're using your money to buy some groceries. But you know, they're eating up some gas, so they decide, well, you know what? I'm going to put a little gas in my car with mom's money. No big deal, mom would probably want me to do that. And maybe you would. But once they break that little threshold right there, then it's, well, I'm getting mom these groceries, but you know, while I'm here at the store, I might as well grab a couple of extra things for myself anyway. And then it's, well, you know, my mom would want my kids to have this nice birthday present that I can't really afford for them. And so they're swiping your card again. And pretty soon they're going out to eat on your money. They're doing basically everything with your money. I remember we had the one case, Lisa, where mom was in the nursing home and we were having to look through her bank accounts to see why she didn't have any money left. And her granddaughter that was on the account had access to it. And sure enough, we're looking through there, and there's charges at Victoria's Secret on Grandma's account. Yes. There's charges at the local bar on her account.
Right.
But you know, it all of that often starts incrementally, but you know, the fact is, it's a lot of temptation. You've probably got more money than they do. You've probably got fewer expenses than they do. And they're looking at that as it's just such an easy, ripe target for them to say, you know what, I'm just going to take this a little bit, and they'll always justify it.
Right, right. And you know, the deal with this reason of unintentional loss, it's unintentional in the sense that you and the child, you think you essentially have an understanding that this is your money, the senior's money, and the child is able to access it and use it for the senior's convenience. But the bank, once again, doesn't look at it that way. Once the bank adds the child to the account, the child owns that money just as much as you do. So if the child goes to the bank and makes a massive withdrawal and nearly zeroes out your account, the bank is not going to stop them from doing that. They have every right and power to do that under the contract with the bank. So, we certainly see families that this works just fine and everyone's respectful and understanding of where the lines are. But we see plenty of families where that child on the account has dipped into that money for their own personal needs, sometimes, very heart-wrenching needs. John, recently I had a lady who she took money out of mom's account to pay for her husband's chemotherapy treatments.
Sure.
But the bottom line is, if this is your life savings, then you are definitely, and you put that child on the account, then the child can spend every dollar in that account, and the bank's not going to stop it. It's not fraud. Then the money's just gone.
That's exactly right. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about a few of the other reasons why you should not be putting your kids on the account. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Lone Star Truck Group is now hiring service technicians. We also have career opportunities in every department. With 23 locations across the South, work where you want. The best product lines in state-of-the-art facilities. Work with the best employees, receiving great benefits, competitive wages, and a safe, clean work environment. Receive ongoing product training for continuous career development. Contact Lone Star Truck Group today and recruiting at LoneStarTruckGroup.com.
Welcome back to Aging Inside, everybody. I'm John Ross, this is Lisa Scholmeyer, and today we're giving you the five reasons not to put your kids on your bank account. And I bet you're thinking, oh, well, I thought that's what you were supposed to do.
Right, that's what we always hear.
Yeah, in fact, most people, by the time they come to see us, when they're in their, we see younger folks, but
Sure.
More of them are in that retirement age group. And by that point, they already are walking in with their kids already added to their bank accounts, one or more anyway. And so we've talked about, there's, it's theirs. They could steal it.
Yeah, they could steal it.
It does happen.
It's their money, so when you die, all the money from that account goes to that one child.
That's right. So you've got unintentional disinheritance. You've got the risk that they just use it for their own purposes. But even if you don't have those things, you can have the unintended consequences. You could lose your money because of things that just happen out there. And that's because, again, these assets are as much the child's as they are yours. I know you think of them as your assets, but as soon as you make the child a joint owner, it's their asset as much as it is your asset. And so their problems are now your problems.
Yeah, that's right. So any financial troubles that the child has can come back onto your money in your account. But remember, if you've added that child to your account, it's now not simply your account. It is, well, how do we say, John? It's y'all's account. But so any financial troubles your child has can certainly impact your account. For instance, we have seen where an adult child's child support was garnished from an account where the parent added that adult child, and within weeks the child support office had garnished that account because the adult child was way behind on child support. Clearly that was not the senior's obligation, that was not the senior's liability, but now their account has been garnished for that child support. If you have an adult child who's got tax issues, creditor issues, perhaps that child files bankruptcy, that the account that you think of as yours, that you've added that child to, is now an asset in the name of that child as well. So for creditor purposes, for bankruptcy purposes, for legal liability purposes, that money is fully available to pay for that child's problems and issues that come up. So, John, that is an unintentional loss. Perhaps the senior nor the child ever considered that as an issue.
Right, and again, it's so hard for some people to get their head wrapped around that it's not mom's money, but it's mom and child's money, that they have the exact same rights to it. And you might be thinking, well, if something did happen like that, I mean, we could just show that the kid hasn't put any of their own money in there. And that actually was tried in a case that went all the way to the United States Supreme Court. A woman having turned 70 thought it would be a good idea to add her only child, her daughter, to all of her accounts, including her Merrill Lynch investment accounts, which contained several $100,000. Meanwhile, the daughter had what they call a balloon mortgage, where you make little small payments,
Right.
and then after some number of years, the rest of the mortgage comes due all at once, one big fat balloon payment. Well, of course, the daughter couldn't make this. She had some credit problems, couldn't refinance, and so at risk of foreclosure, the daughter was advised by an attorney to go and file bankruptcy.
Right, to stop the foreclosure process.
To stop the foreclosure. So the daughter goes and files bankruptcy. The bankruptcy court comes in and they seize not only all of daughter's assets, but they seize all of mom's assets as well and use those assets to pay off daughter's creditors.
Yes, all of mom's assets that daughter's name was on.
That's right.
So,
Big mistake.
Yes, so that's a third reason. Even if your child is perfect, you know, I've had families where their kids are professionals. You know, maybe I had a family and all their kids were doctors. Well, you know, they didn't think their kids were going to steal their money. Their kids made more money than the seniors had. But what about that lawsuit for malpractice? You know, so
Yeah.
anything can happen. So, and you don't know what that is. None of us knows what the future holds. So when you add the child to your account, you are adding all the child's current and future problems to your account as well.
That's right. So now, maybe you're thinking, hey, John, Lisa, I got the best kids in the whole world. You don't have to worry about my kids. Best kids, whole world. Okay, hey, great. That's wonderful for you. They can still have accidents like we just talked about. But let me ask you another question. You love your kids. You think they're the best people in the whole world. What do you think about their spouses? Do you trust their spouses as much as you trust your kids? Or perhaps your grandchildren. Maybe you love you might even like your grandchildren more than your kids. But all of them? Is there one maybe that's a little shifty? I don't know. The thing is that when you add that child to your bank account, if that child's married, then you're not just adding your child, you're adding your child and your child's spouse effectively. Because most likely the kids, your child, they and their spouse, they might have things like powers of attorney in place, which means that if your child can do something, then their spouse using the power of attorney can do something. So your child can access your bank account because they're a joint owner, which means their spouse can probably access your bank account. So think about the in-laws in there, or in certain circumstances, the outlaws.
That's right. So that's really the fourth reason to not add your child to the account, because they may have close family connections that you aren't as close to, and now you have just potentially invited those in-laws or, you know, adult grandchildren onto your account as well by simply adding your child.
And you know, you think about it, that when you add a child to that account, let's say it's an interest-bearing account. Well, the child is an owner. Any interest that is earned is going to be marital property with them and their spouse. So now, even though their spouse is not on the account, their spouse owns some of your money. And in the event of a divorce, guess what?
That's right. That's right. So, well, all right. Well, we'll go and we'll take our last break, and we'll come back and finish up with a reason not to add your child to your account, and then tell you what you should do. So we'll be right back.
Lone Star Truck Group is now hiring service technicians. We also have career opportunities in every department. With 23 locations across the South, work where you want. The best product lines in state-of-the-art facilities. Work with the best employees, receiving great benefits, competitive wages, and a safe, clean work environment. Receive ongoing product training for continuous career development. Contact Lone Star Truck Group today and recruit it at LoneStarTruckGroup.com.
Welcome back to the final segment on today's Aging Insight, and today we're talking about the very common question that we get about should you add a child to your bank account? And our answer is a definite no. We've gone over 4 reasons so far, and John, a 5th reason that you should not add your child to your bank account is your child may be great, your in-laws may be great, it may be the most Walt Disney family there ever was. But your child could face a disability or a debilitating illness in which that child needs to access Social Security disability programs, perhaps some Medicaid for their own health insurance and health care support. It is not terribly unusual these days for an adult child to actually end up in worse health than the parent.
Right.
And if that child is on your bank account, then that child is considered to own that account, and those assets are counted in the child's application for any assistance through Social Security Administration or any disability programs.
Yeah, so I mean, think about it this way. Why are you doing it in the first place? What was your whole reasoning behind putting the kid on the bank account? Well, it was because if something happens to you, they can handle that, right? Because you're worried about you becoming incapacitated. As if nobody else on the planet could ever become incapacitated but you. Right? That's ridiculous to think about. It's just as likely that your adult child will become incapacitated. You're thinking, oh, if I have to go to the nursing home or if I have to, they'll be able to access my money and do whatever they need. But nobody ever thinks about what happens when their child goes to the nursing home. And the fact that just by adding them to your account, you have caused them to not be able to get government assistance programs like Medicaid, and you're potentially putting your assets at risk to have to go towards the cost of their care. You're jeopardizing the health and welfare of your own children by adding them to your bank account. And nobody ever thinks about that.
No, they really don't. And I can't count how many times we've seen that situation happen. So with all these 5 reasons that we've talked about today, that, when you add someone to their account, they own the money just like you do. We talked about unintentional disinheritance, where the owner gets the money but the other kids are left out. We've talked about a kid who maybe is a little sly with the money and spends it. We've talked about having in-laws or whatnot with power and authority to deal with your account. We've talked about a child being disabled. So, John, so many, bankers often tell clients, when a client comes in and approaches a banker and says, what happens if I can't write a check or if I'm in the hospital? And most of the time, the bank will advise their own banking customer, well, you should probably, do you have someone you trust? You should probably add them to your account.
Yeah.
And we
understand. Yeah. That's
terrible.
That's terrible advice, and that's really them protecting them.
Right.
It has nothing to do with you. They may sound like they're being helpful, but they're really not. They just know that if you voluntarily add your kid to your account, well, that's their kids. It's the kid's money just as well as it is theirs. And so any inter-family issues y'all have, bank's out of it because you did it on your own. So yeah. Now, here's a couple of things though. First of all, what people want when they're talking about adding kids to bank accounts is they want them to have access, be able to use it, stuff like that. Forget adding them as owners. This is why you have power of attorney. We've talked on the show 8,000 times about the importance of having general durable power of attorney so that somebody can handle your business transactions. With that power of attorney, they will be able to access your funds, write checks, pay bills, do all of the things that you need them to do without you exposing them to their problems, without unintentional disinheritance, and a lot of these other issues. Now, that doesn't stop them from stealing it.
Unfortunately, no.
Unfortunately.
But you know, so having a power of attorney is, we think, the first line of appropriate defense here in this case. John, some banks do offer an account where you can be what we call a convenience signer.
Right.
To where you're not an owner of the child is not an owner on the account, but they are simply a convenience signer. However, even though banks do offer that, I don't think they train their people on identifying that that's really what the banking customer is looking for.
Right.
And so I think in my 20 years of practice, I've seen a convenience signer added properly to an account twice.
Yeah, it doesn't
Most
happen.
of the time they go ahead and check the box for joint owner. So again, that's
Even when that's what you ask for.
right.
Right,
So
you go in and say, I just want them to be able to write checks, nothing else. You walk out with a joint owner.
Yes.
And it's all about how the paperwork was filled out. So
Yeah.
now there can be some situations where this is okay. Listen, okay, you've got a checking account, you got, $500 in it. You got a little money that comes in, which gets spent as soon as it comes in and goes back out, and you're back down to your couple of $100. You want to add your kid to that account? Who cares?
yeah, there's not that much there.
Even if they steal all of it, even if you lose all of it, even if they have a nursing home issue, who cares? It's a couple of $100. So that situation, and particularly if you have an only child.
Yeah, an only child, then we're not worried about disinheritance necessarily.
And so, yeah, smaller amounts and an only child. If you got that circumstance, hey, add them to the account. But again, understand all of these risks. For everybody else, probably one of those 5 reasons is going to apply. And one of those, if not all of them, are going to be reasons not to add your kids to your bank accounts.
So we appreciate you all viewing and watching another episode of Aging Insight, and we hope we've cleared up a very common issue for you this afternoon, and we will be here next week for another episode.
That's right. And so if you have any questions, you can always reach out and grab one of our Aging Insight magazines at your local doctor's office or by reaching out to our law firm, Ross & Schollmeyer. We'd be happy to provide you one. Got lots of good information on all of these issues. So we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.